4th of September 2022, Money Island Part 2. Just to follow on the video Money Island, I think it was good. It was well received. I think I've explained about money fairly good. Now, you get a lot of people commenting, and I'm always hearing this, about fiat currencies. Oh, it's no good having a fiat currency. Now, certainly if you link a currency to gold, gold is a valuable thing going back thousands of years, but there's not much you can do with it. And if you had a coinage based on gold, it'd be wearing. The gold would be wearing off. People would be filing it. You'd have a problem. You'd lose a lot of gold over a year with wear and tear. And so, as well as that, another fella die and have a cash of it under the bed and all that, and you might never see it again for hundreds of years. It hasn't much use. Platinum's much more valuable because it can be used in electrolysis for making hydrogen and all that. It's not reactive in the same way as other substances. So if you were stranded on a desert island and you had 50 ton of gold, I'd rather have a fishing rod, to tell you the honest truth, and a bit of bait, or a little rifle or something like that, even a spade to dig up something. So it's limited in that way. Hard to see how it could be used in a modern economy. The other thing is, if a country sticks its currency to gold, it has to give gold for the currency. So if we take our island, Loudland, the king says, I'll give an ounce of gold for every 1,000. Well, we say no, that'd be a bit more. Yeah, we'd say every 1,000 units of currency. Or what I call them, the louds, is it, or whatever it is. So every 1,000 of them will buy 1 ounce of gold. He has to have the gold there. And if everyone cans in the 1,000, he has to give out the gold, and he ends up with all this money and his gold gone. So you lose the value of it a bit like that. And that's what happened in America in 1971 when they pulled out from the gold standard. There was a run on American gold because the government was spending too much money with the Vietnam War. There was a run on American gold, and they could have lost a lot of their gold reserves. So it's not just that easy. Now, usually anyway, there's only a proportion of the currency attached to gold. You could attach it to silver and other things, but there's very few things. Like if you had good walnut seasoned timber properly stored, it's a master wood. It would hold its value. Walnut probably would. But the trouble with it is that how do you store it? Where do you store it? Who pays for storing it? What are the conditions under which it's stored? You wouldn't want it to get wet and all that. So, and then it's not that mad valuable. It's still growing. The other thing then is that if your land is very hard kept, as a farmer myself, I can tell you, you have to go out and look after land. Land does not mind itself. If you don't look after it, it'll grow into a big forest, and it's a nightmare if it costs a fortune to keep it right. So land is not all fun and games for most people. And exceptionally good land sometimes can be let to people at good money, and they keep mind it for the owner. But it has to be extremely good land. There's not that much of that on the market. But it's a bit of a nightmare, and there's laws about adverse possession and all that. There's houses and property and all there. They can be a nuisance too. I mean, I have houses and that. There's a lot. I'm always fixing them, always rooting at them and doing something with them. So there's no easy way of storing your money. Gold is probably a good way, but then do you keep it under the bed or do you hide it somewhere? And what happens to it? What if it's stolen? What if somebody comes in and threatens to kill you? Do you hand it to them? Or do you put it in a safe? And then if they put it in the safe, the government could possibly take it. So there's all these considerations. So the fiat currency then, where it is linked to the product properly, where it starts off with something that never changes. So you have, as I said, a cow worth 1,000, a sheep worth 200. Well, then you're into the quality of these animals. Well, you'd have to state that they're good quality. So you have butter, you have things like that. So if you keep the value, in other words, if the currency becomes scarce and the prices go up because there's deflation, that the currency that the butter goes down in price because the money's too valuable, you want to print a bit more. If then there's too much money and the price of the cow goes way up to 2,000, well, you printed too much. You need to pull it back. So you need to manage it, and you need the intelligence to do that. Now, in Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe the great freedom fighter, started building themselves palaces all over the place. So you ended up with your currency paying for those palaces, and you had inflation running at hyper mad inflation. He just thought he could keep printing and keep spending, and of course that brought disaster. Same in other countries as well, in the Weimar Republic in Germany, at one stage in the 30s, around then. But the thing about it is that that's where the government failed to keep the currency value equal to the goods and services. And of course, if you have a poor economy, and I believe the Mugabe government was a disaster, they had no enterprise at all, then your currency is not worth much. There aren't much goods and services. Whereas if you have people working, everything in good order, then the value of your goods and services is high. And if your currency is linked to that, then your value of your currency is good, even if it's a fiat currency. So I don't really follow this thing about using gold and having the gold standard. I don't really follow it. You could have a semi-gold standard, although if they come up with a currency, these BRICS countries, and they do link it to gold, and they have a lot of gold collected, they could link it to gold. But then the question is, if some future date there comes a run on it, and everyone starts looking for the gold, would they give it to you? These countries have no legal system. They have, but it's the government is rules all, and they can just tell you you're getting nothing. So you see, at least in America or in the West or in Britain, you have a legal right to go in and sue, and you have to get that. All the government can do is tax you, but you can get your gold or whatever you're entitled to. There's such a thing as a contract. In China and a lot of other countries in Russia, well, you could end up in horizontal rather than vertical, and you know what I mean by that. So that's the story there, folks. It's the currency will be as good as the goods and services of the country, and how it's managed, how increased population is allows for more printing of money, and how sometimes they need to pull back the supply, more times they can push it up. They can dip in and out them for emergency situations, but not to the extent of the COVID. And in the case of COVID, there was enough done. There was enough done by the printing of money to ease it by the European Investment Bank, but governments also borrowed heavily. National governments borrowed heavily to get over the COVID, and now the debt's way up. I think it's 240 billion for Ireland. I think that's the way it is at the moment. So you get it there anyway on the net. So they went overboard. So that they are a nanny state, so they go mad. So that's the thing. Our nanny state society, without much assessment, without much intelligence, without much industry, is providing weak currency. It's becoming more worthless as time goes on. It's becoming more worthless all the time, and we're seeing America now deciding they're going to start producing semiconductors and all these microchips and all this. When they realise they're stuck, they're in. Taiwan makes a lot of them, and China and other countries, and they're only now discovered, and that was foolish. Like Trump was trying to get out from that. They're now trying to make these microchips. And these microchips in cars and tractors have been a disaster in my view. I had an Opel Astra van, a good van, the G model, and there were no microchips in it, no problem, great van. And I had an Opel Astra H1, and they had sensors, they had a camshaft sensor and a flywheel sensor. And they left me sitting on the road at least 3 occasions. On one occasion, I was in Dublin with friends doing something, and it wouldn't start when I came out. You had to pour cold water on it to get it to go. I have a Ford 4000 and a Fiat tractor. No electrics whatsoever. I have a Hitachi digger. I bought it specifically because it has no electrics, and they're in high demand now. I see nothing to be gained from the electrics. In fact, there's a chip in some Massey Ferguson tractors, and if you don't pay your repayments, the tractor can be switched off in the field and you doing the work. It can be switched off from a computer abroad or anywhere by the bank. So this is the way it has been gone, trying to control us and all that. And for my tuppence halfpenny worth, I like the simple thing. I like the way things always worked. I don't see the need for all this stuff. And it's choking the car manufacturing industries because they can't get these chips and these microprocessors. Right, folks, that's under 10 minutes in mine. There's just 10 minutes now. And that's my little talk. You just get that again. Uh, the value of your money is good as the economy. If you can't use that, you can go to gold. Yes, you can go to gold. And it has its own troubles. You'd have to issue your money and have gold opposite it in a big store, and you have the cost of mining that and all. And it's highly debatable if the gold that people think they own in stores, in banks in England and banks in America and elsewhere, if that's their gold at all. It's supposed to be, again, I'm a wee bit out of my depth here, that there's several people own the same ounce of gold. You get a certificate to say you own this gold, it's in a deposit somewhere, you own it, you're the owner, but then some other fella gets the same. 3 or 4 people get the same, so if you go looking for it, there's more than one person owns it. Folks, we'll let it go at that. As the Chinaman said about the lights, they do dim some. When he was asked would he put the lights out, they do dim some. So that's the story. We'll see you back. It's only a joke, a bit of crack. We have to wee bit of fun sometimes. Give me a thumbs up and a thumbs down. Just get the idea. If you have an island with no money and you put money into it properly, you increase the whole value of the island. If you have an island with the money in it and you suddenly pull away all the money and ban it, the value of your goods and services and that island goes away down without money. You kill its efficiency, its ability to do what it likes doing, to have enterprise and produce stuff and provide services and all of that. Right? So the money itself is an addition to society, and that's the little bit extra I bring to this debate. You will never see that. I'm the only one to point that out. The existence of money adds to the value and the overall worth of the country issuing it, or the entity issuing it. Okay? And so that it is a value in itself, whether it's fiat or anything else. But if it's linked to gold, the value of it is really the gold. So if gold dropped, even though the country producing the currency is really strong, you only get the gold. So that's the downside of it. But in most cases, it's only a percentage of gold. America, I think, was 31% gold or something like that. So you have a mix of the gold and the value of society. But again, if the society was run right and doing well and had good resources and everyone going well and doing well, the value based on goods and services would be perfectly ample. And I repeat, just finishing, money adds value to your economy. And that's a new one now. I don't think you'll find that in any book. You take the money out, your economy decreases in wealth. You put the money in, the economy increases. Money is the same as maybe communications, telegraph wires, electricity, and anything else. It's a service. It's a service provided, and when it's done right, it's a good service. And when it's not done right, it can lead to disaster. And show me anything, whether it's health, whether it's media, whether it's farming or building or anything else, if it's done wrong, it's a disaster anyway. So the key is to make sure whoever's handling it does it right. Now, folks, that's enough said. Goodbye. We'll see you back. Thank you.